Good morning. We get the white pieces. We have not played our opponent before. Who's been on for about a year from Egypt. French defense. Okay, he goes with a closed Sicilian type setup, which is, I think, the strongest line against this Chigorin variation. Not sure where I want my rook at. I'm tempted to put my rook on d1 to push d4. But there's also d3 with bishop to e3 supporting d4. A lot of tempo. I'd really like my rook behind the queen also, but I think we're going to go that route. He's likely to push d5 himself. Or I could take and open that up. I want to put my bishop here, attacking this undefended pawn, supporting d4. You can support it here or here. But I think he wants to push d5, so this might be a better option for him to develop his bishop here. And I'm going to go ahead with d4. He doesn't have to take. Taking allows me to take towards the center, have a natural square for my knight. Ignoring and just developing his bishop. I mean, okay, he decides to take. I don't think that I was really threatening to take there, allowing him to strengthen his center. But he took. Okay. Now I'm going to get my knight developed. c3 to protect this pawn because I don't want to take and leave myself. I'm not sure this is an IQP position I want to leave myself in, since it's already strongly blockaded and my isolated queen pawn has a lot of attackers on it already. Although, like he's gonna leave me with an IQP anyway. My only chance to avoid it is to push. He can take, or I can take, and either way, I've got the isolated queen pawn. So I feel like I might have a slight disadvantage here, which isn't a given with an isolated queen pawn, but in this position, it's already blockaded. There's not potential to push it, and it's already attacked twice. I've got two pieces tied down to defending it. Guess I want. If I take, he can take with a knight. Which is okay. I can develop my knight, attack the center, bring a rook over to defend. And add the queen to the defense if I need to. That's it's going to be committing a lot of forces to defending this pawn. I'm regretting pushing d4 now. But I can push. I can close the structure. If I allow him to take, he's got three attackers on. Push. I'm going to see if I can't fight this out with a closed structure. So I'm giving him this square. And he's going to have the opportunity to trade off my dark square bishop. I don't think that's a big deal. I take it towards the center and I just have a nice solid pawn chain in the center here. I don't have as good of an opportunity to exploit these weaknesses, but he swings his bishop and then attacks my pawn chain base. Let's get developed. Can't keep delaying development. I think black has an edge here. White has a space edge. White also has a development edge. Kind of. Maybe minuscule. Slight. Itty bitty. Just because this bishop isn't developed yet. But he's already pushed a rook towards the center. I can probably call development a wash. I have a space advantage. But his knights are a little better coordinated on a specific target. And what's my plan? If he takes the bishop, I take back. It's defended by the queen. He can add the bishop to attack it, but I get an open F file to work with. I've got lots of space pressure here, so I don't think that's a bad deal. I can work with that. I would have also got to redeploy my knight up here. This knight off the board. I think this knight's better than this bishop. That'd be a mistake for him to trade. Kind of like him too at this point. Am I worried about him pushing? Grabbing some more space. Oh, okay. Yeah, he wants to support this square so he can skewer my queen and rook. And I suppose I probably ought to stop that. Could block it with my knight here. He pins my knight. I support it with a4. That opens this hole for the knight. Maybe I just bring my rook to defend the pawn chain. He develops his bishop to attack the queen. Then I can block. If he adds an attacker, I defend. He still gets this hole for the knight. So maybe I just move the queen instead of blocking with the knight. It gives him an opportunity to push the pawn. Move the rook. And then I think I'm going to move the queen here to look at this. Might be a useful battery for the bishop and queen if he moves this knight. I don't suspect he's going to move it unless it's to take this bishop. There's really no good square for it to move to. But the queen does support this pawn also. It might give me a chance to move the bishop off, attack the queen, and maybe get into this f6 hole. He keeps pushing. Now I'm going to push a3 just to keep his knight out of this. But that gives him knight to b3. I always forget about that maneuver. Because there now, I can take the pawn. Can I? No, I can't. Can I? I take the pawn. He goes knight b3 anyway, attacking my knight and my rook. So I go knight takes pawn. He goes knight takes rook. Knight takes rook. And I'm up 2 pawns. Knight takes. Knight b3. Attacking 2 pieces. Knight takes pawn. Oh, queen takes knight. Queen takes knight. Not so good. Hmm. Although we swing the queen over here anyway. We swing the queen over, and if knight b3, rook b1, and our threat is to take on a4, because the knight would hang. Rook takes knight, queen takes knight. Do that. And I have a threat that he didn't see. What's he doing with his bishop there? That just hangs the pawn, doesn't it? Or at least the rook was kind of protecting it, but it wasn't because there was a tactic. Like he's attacking the queen, and that hung his knight. And now he's hanging a pawn. I think he just didn't calculate that thoroughly and gave up a piece and a pawn. I imagine he's very frustrated at the moment and maybe considering resign. Because I'm up a knight and a pawn with no compensation for black. He just gave it to me. I'll have to go back and see what his better ideas were. Instead of blocking this with the bishop here, giving me the pawn, I wonder if there was a defense. He might have had to retreat his knight, or I don't know what he would have done. I don't know if he could have saved the pawn anyway. Maybe he could have brought his queen to protect the pawn. That's probably a pretty good idea. Queen or bishop. Bishop was here. Brought his bishop to protect the pawn, and if knight takes, bishop takes would have protected the knight. So that would have been just hanging a piece for me. He doesn't want to trade queens. I don't know how much of a choice he's got. Gonna try and trap my queen. I don't think that works out. Got this and this, and I can retreat the queen. If he wants to avoid a queen trade, that's his only move. I wish I had that, but this knight is here, being very pesky. Okay, he wants to play on. So I want to avoid getting in trouble with my queen, so I'm going to come here and just look at retreating. I'm up a lot of material, and I'm going to just regroup. Not have my queen out there as a target for him to gain tempo and coordinate his pieces. And then I'm going to start rolling these pawns. Up two pawns in a knight. I don't expect this to play out much longer. I do think he'll I mean, I would resign because just would struggle mightily to find ideas. I'm going to push this pawn first, supported by the knight, and then push this pawn so that this one doesn't hang. I could push here and threaten bishop afterwards. Just trade the bishops. He'll have to. You gotta move the queen and trade my knight. I'm good with any trades. Trade down material, and I'm that much stronger, so Black does not want to trade. And he is persistently playing on. Well, a tip of the hat to you, sir. Like, it is important to fight on in losing positions, because I can blunder. It's never too late to blunder away a game. For instance, I was thinking about queen here. It doesn't look particularly beneficial, though, and I mean, as strong as this knight is, just trading pieces, I think, is a perfectly legitimate strategy. I don't know, allowing him to take that dark squared bishop off the board with these weaknesses might be pretty nice for me. Without bringing the queen here and then just taking back with the queen. If he's already said he doesn't want a queen trade, and that brings the queen back up here to be a target, though. I don't need to think about it too much. I just need to get the pieces off the board, move these rooks over here, march pawns. That's my plan. You might be able to blockade him if he can get this bishop here, though. Maybe I can get that knight off the board. Let's do that. Let's look at just trading down pieces and making this a You brought the queen over here. I'm just going to trade pieces. Might have given him a rook for a bishop, but that's okay because these dark square weaknesses are going to be too much if he gives up that bishop. I think this is a good try, but it still gets material off the board. Okay, he doesn't want my queen in there, and I can't blame him. I wouldn't either. So let's offer the bishop trade again, just reposition over here. Apologies, my cat got herself caught behind the washing machine. Um, I really have made my intentions clear of just trading down pieces and whittling down to an end game where I'm up a piece. So he has to know that he's in trouble. So taking with the knight, this rook is hanging, so that allows this pawn to be taken. Taking with the rook hangs this pawn, but I think I have a mating attack very quickly. So rather than I think I want the knight involved over here in the kingside attack, so I don't want to retreat the knight. I'm going to take with the rook and allow this pawn to be taken. And go here, queen here, and say good game. He doesn't have the time, I don't think, to snatch up these pawns. Okay, he's going to retreat with the queen, which is his only defense, keeping me out of that square. And I push e6 just to create a hole for the queen to get in here. And with the knight, the rook is attacked. Bring the rook over here. Let's do it. So I've done the exchange, but I've got 2 minors for the rook. Cat. No. Got it. Okay, and he picks up the pawn. I try to block this access back, and he can just take it, and I take back, and he takes my queen. And I take his rook. So it's a rook and a queen trade. I have a pass pawn, but I don't have any more mating attack. I have a bishop and a knight versus a rook. And I don't even have my, let's see, I'm not even my 2 pawns up anymore because I've given those up. So I've kind of, I don't know, I banked on this attack. Maybe I should just force the queen to come back and defend. Knight here, and he just pushes the pawn. So where is my conversion? More difficult than converting a winning endgame sometimes. If I bring my bishop back over here, he's still got to push this pawn. Trade queens, but no, he can't because that'd be mate. Where's my progress? Would love my knight to be on the square, but it's only getting there from a very obscure reroute. That's a lot of maneuvering. And then the rook is currently occupying square. So yeah, so let's force him to do this. Maybe he'll do that. He's not forced, but I'm protecting the square. I'll reroute my knight. Here, 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 and here. If he doesn't want to trade queens, I mean, this is coming. He needs to push this pawn. Now he can't even trade queens. Can he? Yeah, he can. Okay. So queen trade is imminent. And that's okay because he can never come off the back rank. If he ever pushes this pawn to create a hole for his king, I could just push this pawn. I think I like this reroute better though, because it keeps the knight a little shielded from rook attacks. Doesn't let him develop with tempo. I think this reroute. He's going to trade. He's trying to trade my rook. Which I don't really want because that makes mate a lot harder. I mean, I can fight on with a bishop and knight versus a single rook, but it makes his life a bit easier. And I'm down to 59 seconds. I'm going to continue with my plan. This may not be a winning endgame anymore for me, but I still like my chances. I think I had a much bigger edge. I did. Was up a piece and two pawns at one point, and I've allowed him to kind of claw his way back in. I think that mentality of just trade pieces maybe has been a little costly for me. I'm trying to bring my knight forward, so but I do not think his rook has much of a chance against my two minors. 5 pawns to 5 pawns, rook versus two minors. I should still have a slight edge. Just not as big as I did at one point. I think I was clearly winning at one. He stays here to try and keep pressure. Does not do that. I'm going to come here. Check, and then come here and fork these 2 pawns. And if he gives me this one, I'll have a passer. If he doesn't give me this one, I'll still have an isolated pawn that's a target. Okay, he defends. I'm gonna bring my knight here anyway. So he's defended both. He can defend both pawns. The rook's committed to these two squares now. "30 seconds. Let's march our king over there and see if we can't get our king up in this area. This bishop holds everything together there. He can cut my king off. That's an idea, but he doesn't. Now his king is defending this pawn. And it's on a dark square, or a light square, so I can only attack it with the knight. And now my king is cut off on this side. This is Wishenslug. He's got a rook move. No, he doesn't. He can bring his rook backwards. Gives me a chance to attack it. I don't want to be cut off on this file, and the knight keeps him out of this square. And now maybe I can look at it, moving my bishop. Is he going to sack? No, he can't sack the rook for either minor piece. He can attack my king. The knight has this square. The bishop back to defend this pawn. And ask him what he's going to do with this rook. And I get to make a little progress forward with my king. Okay. Hmm. Without pawn breaks, this is going to be very difficult. I'm tempted to come here to bring the knight here. I think that's a good idea. Solid. That'll shield my king and allow my king in here. King's got to go backwards. Only move. And now I'm going to attack this pawn. So I had to put a little work into it, but I think once I snag this pawn, things are looking pretty good for me. I don't mind trading pawns. Yeah, I'll trade the pawn first. There are no pawn advances that just won't be taken. And now I think I'm just gonna walk this pawn to queening. Can go to that square, but I'm gonna drive him out. Gonna have to sack his rook for my passer and a miner. And then I've got to be careful about just, not allowing him to trade all the pawns off. And as long as I keep a pawn, it's a winning endgame. Knight has that square. So I push. He wants to come back here, maybe check here. But I'm going to check first. I'm going to do this. I think I want to keep the bishop. It'll be easier for me to round up the pawns with the bishop, I think. If I guard the square over here, I give him the check. Check and block with the bishop. And that allows me to queen, so I'm going to guard the I'm going to guard the square with the bishop so I can keep my... I'm going to guard the square with the knight because the bishop will keep these pawns at bay easier. Checks. I block the check. And I'm happy to give up the rook for the bishop there because I get the queen. Probably was still winning if I go into a end game with the knight versus the pawns, but that becomes a little trickier. I don't know. Good game. Good game, friend. So I know I had a big advantage at one point. Then I allowed it to slip back a little bit, I think. Oh, I was saying a pretty hard advantage the whole most of the game. I didn't really feel a whole lot of pressure, but I knew that I'd let some of the advantage slip back. 86% accuracy. This is a really fun game because I wasn't feeling a whole lot of pressure, and it liked my idea of pushing this pawn and not trading off. Good. Good to know my evaluation skills were put to good use there. It's a pretty even game, and that calls that questionable. What's an inaccuracy? And I felt that after I did it. What should I do instead? I should just push on the king side. Center's locked up. All my pieces are king side. Makes sense. And that was an inaccuracy on his part, which just gave me the pawn. And I wasn't sure what his better ideas were here. Maybe he should, I think he should have just developed to defend the pawn with the bishop or the queen. Maybe the queen was better. This one's excellent, though. Wants him to take the dark square bishop first. That was my best move, taking. And that was a blunder, attacking the queen and giving up the knight. So here, his better ideas. I'm not sure what his better ideas are. Oh, defending the knight. That's a better idea. Apologies again. Cat cannot decide if she wants in or out. But he gave me the knight, so that was clear blunder. And then he gives me another pawn, and I'm up 5.7 here. 5.7 points of material. He attacks. It really feels like I'm just in control. These are best moves, good moves. Taking. Doesn't even mind me giving up the exchange. I'm still at 5.2. With two minors giving back a pawn. These dark square weaknesses are just killer for him. So he's got both pawns back. And the rook for two minors. But I still have a 5.2 edge just based on my position and his weaknesses. But it's down to 4 points now. So I slipped a little here with the queen move, just inviting him to come back with the queen. What is my better option? Push the pawn. Interesting. It's very interesting. He can't take with the rook because that forces him to give up the queen. He takes with the pawn, then I've got rook to c7, threatening this. Okay. That would have been a good find in game. But as it is, even as I feel the advantage slipping back a little bit, I'm up. I still have a 5-point edge. Trading queens down to 3.7 here. The knight coming back was a bad idea. Why did I do that? Oh, I was going to redeploy. I was planning on this grand knight maneuver to get my knight up here. And it says, no, that's probably not a great idea. But I was struggling for ideas at the time. Just a simple rook lift, taking control of the 7th rank. Maybe still with ideas of pushing this pawn and knight g5. But I did something silly and I brought my knight back to the back rank. Even here, still have 3 points of material edge or positional edge, 3.4 on the eval bar. But pawns are equal, and the rook versus the 2 minors. The 2 minors are just too strong. So you can never trade the rook for one of them. And there are too many pawns on the board with opportunities to queen. So ooh, dropped it down to, that's a mistake. 1.8 advantage here. Why is that a mistake? Should I give up the pawn? How is that a mistake? I don't see what the idea is here. If I give up the pawn, what's the... It just wants me to march in with the king and give up this pawn. All right, I need the engine for this to understand what's going on here. So if rook takes pawn, it's still dropping that eval to 2.2 after. So if king here, which it says is the best move, rook takes pawn, it wants me to go knight b7. King d7. And knight c5, which is what I did anyway. Well, I'll see why saving the pawn was such a bad deal. And now it says this king move is also a mistake. But I still have 2 points of material edge. So it's just overwhelming at this point. Once I get the pawn, I'm up to 6 point edge. And the pawn is unstoppable. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that game. That was a fun game. My opponent played it quite well too. Um, Even though he dropped material, he still fought hard. I was kind of expecting him to resign at one point, but I I sometimes forget that when you get up to 17, 18, 1900, people don't always just lay down and resign for you. They want to fight on, and that's why part of the reason why you get to this level is because uh, you don't quit on a game. You never win a game by resigning. So fight on, even if it seems dismal. As you can tell by my in-game thoughts there were times where I felt like I was letting things slip a little bit, but uh, I had control. I was able to maintain control. Thanks for watching. Come back and watch some more chess.